I'm Thomas Hall, Executive Director of CleanStart, and I would like to welcome Janine Elliott, Assistant Director of Venture Catalyst at UC Davis. Janina has been working with entrepreneurs and supporting startups for over a decade now. As I mentioned earlier when we were talking, she spent 6 years at Venture Wells over in Massachusetts, and she just came to UC Davis from Lacey, one of our sister partner organizations, Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. Good to see talent coming from there to here. And now she's at UC Davis, hopefully building the ecosystem. Now I'm going to invite her to share her screen and tell us about what she's discovered when she's come here.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for the warm welcome, and I'm really glad to be here. It's great to see some familiar faces, and I'm going to try to keep my comments a little bit short here so that there's plenty of time for us to have some discussion, and you know, if there's something I didn't cover or something you want to go deeper into, I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. Yep, thank you so much for the warm welcome, and I'm going to jump on in, if I can remember how to advance my slides. There we go. And upon coming here, I thought one of the things that was really wonderful about joining the greater Sacramento ecosystem was that so much groundwork has been laid by you know, folks on this call and many others who've come before. And so this is just a piece of this amazing subway map that shows the interconnections and resources in the region out at the Startup Sac website. So if you're not familiar with Startup Sac, I really suggest checking it out. And I know that for me, it was really helpful to just understand all of the moving parts. And you'll notice that UC Davis and the UC Davis piece of the puzzle is this little corner right down in here. And so I'm going to take a little bit of time here to just expand upon that, because within the greater ecosystem, then there's the UC Davis piece of the puzzle with all of these different hubs and sub-hubs and groups of folks that are involved in supporting university-based innovations that actually, it was pretty amazing that it turns out that over 75% of the innovations that we've supported over the years have actually stayed in Northern California. So, and most of those actually stayed in the Davis and Sacramento area. So I'm really excited to offer those types of services. And so just by way of context, as Thomas was mentioning, I come from Venture Catalyst, and Venture Catalyst is a part of the Office of Research. This isn't uncommon in higher education circles, that the Office of Research and the Office of Technology Transfer will have a group of people like myself who, you know, have the opportunity to help those who want to spin out a technology from the university to do so, as opposed to just handing off the technology to somebody in the tech transfer office for out licensing. And so it's been really exciting that in partnership with our tech transfer office, which we call Innovation Access, we manage over 900 active patents, and we then take about, you know, 1 in 9 of those and spin them up as startups with faculty members or students at the university who are excited to move that technology forward. And as we've done that, and this definitely holds true for my experiences at VentureWell or Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator as well, is, you know, we're all familiar with the valley of death. And I would say that the valley of death tends to kind of come a little bit later, where you're able to, you know, sort of get by with a little bit here and there from a monetary or a team or commercialization perspective. But at this very, very early stage, when you're going from even fundamental research to productization, or that very first pilot, that's the very first piece of commercialization, there are those key resources that help you actually translate that research from technology to product. And so at Venture Catalyst, we've identified 4 key areas that really help to bridge that canyon of death. And we see that as early stage proof of concept funding, support resources, such as, you know, business resources or business services, innovation space, incubation type space, and then connections. How do people build that community more and further? So just to go into those 4 areas and how we at Venture Catalyst really focus on that is the first point of contact that we often have with researchers within the UC Davis community is proof of concept funding. And we do that where we give $50,000 grants to a handful of these faculty members. And you can almost think of these as a pre-SBIR or STTR type grant. It's just enough to lay down enough proof of concept that when somebody then submits a grant to the National Science Foundation or the Department of Energy, they have some credible translational data to put forward and build upon. Then there's also in the area of support systems and support resources, we have what we call our new venture toolkit, and those are basically consulting services such as pitch practice coaching, connecting folks with legal services, connecting our innovators with professional service providers. I'll have a little list on the next slide here. And really just helping them think through how this venture could work, and also to direct the entrepreneurs to resources both within and outside of the UC Davis community. By the time a startup or an innovator goes from getting some of that proof of concept funding and working through some of those new venture issues, that's usually when they're really ready to spin out of the university and take an independent space, because in the university context, if it's on campus, the university owns it. And if you have a startup, you don't want all of your intellectual property to necessarily be owned by the university in the long run. So that's where joining an incubator or accelerator off campus becomes really critical. And finally, we also support economic engagement types of initiatives, which is definitely much more for the broader community. And there's some really exciting things that we have going on that are available to people in the greater Sacramento community, whether you have an existing affiliation with UC Davis or not, as a student, staff, faculty, or alumni. So I'm really excited to share with you those towards the end of this presentation. So as I mentioned, a part of that START program, that SMART toolkit of venture resources, involve the Venture Net program, which is pretty common of a lot of accelerators and incubators, where we offer up a network of vetted partners who offer discounted services and things like insurance, banking, creative, intellectual property, all of those things that often need to be addressed on a very curated sort of one-to-one basis that every small business needs. And then on the legal side, especially for that first step of incorporation, we have a group of legal providers, many of these names probably look familiar to you, who offer up no-cost startup incorporation, so that way there's an opportunity to start building that relationship, get those properly, legal legs under the startup, so that they can really start moving forward legitimately. And then I do want to also give a little shout out to our distributed incubator network, the Drive network, as we like to call it. And we found that we work with so many different innovators who have different needs, that it can really be everything from greenhouse space and crop science, which is where the HM Kloss Life Science Innovation Center comes into play. It might be wet lab space for biotech, at which point working with UC Davis College School of Medicine is a piece of the puzzle. Sometimes it's fabrication type space or other types of wet lab space. And that's really where Inventopia has been really amazing. AgStart's been incredible. And I've been really excited to meet all the different people at the co-working and maker spaces in the region. I know this is just a handful of them. But these are just the ones that UC Davis tends to have the closest relationship with. So if you're not on this list and you want to be, contact me, and we can see about getting you integrated into the Drive network. And then finally, just to start wrapping up with a couple of resources that I wanted to make sure you were aware of as members of this wonderful community, is we really then, after incubating these startups on campus or through campus related programs, we really do want to make sure that these startups are getting out into the community, and that also we're getting a chance to work with community members like yourselves or your constituents as well. So some of those events are related to regional or national conferences. So the Biotech Innovation Gallery is actually an initiative where we partner with the JP Morgan conference, which is sort of the who's who of medical technologies, and do a demo day and partner matching type of event in the medical space. I'm really excited that I'll be spinning something up like that for clean tech and ag tech over the course of the next year. And then publicly, what's also available is this knowledge exchange speaker series. So I encourage you to sign up for the Venture Catalyst newsletter. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But like, for example, today we're doing a session around team formation and team recruitment and working with your early stage team. And we tend to do these monthly, sometimes bi-weekly. It's about an hour and 15 minutes, and then we post them on YouTube after the fact. So those are open to the public, and I really encourage you to take advantage of those. Because of the Biotech Innovation Gallery stuff that's going on right now this fall in preparation for JPM in January, we've got a bunch of them that are actually around medical technology. So I know this is a clean tech group, but if you want to learn more about certain types of product development or other regulated industries that have some interesting corollaries to clean tech, feel free to drop in on those sessions. They're all virtual. And then the last thing on this slide that I actually wanted to touch on is we recently launched a relationship with the SBDC, and these services are open to the public. SBDC Tech at UC Davis Venture Catalyst is hosted through us. But if you're a clean tech innovation or know clean tech innovators who are doing clean tech at the intersection of biotech or clean tech at the intersection with ag tech, we have dedicated mentors and services that they can take advantage of. And we really welcome all comers in those categories. So, don't be shy. And then I know I've talked a lot about just Venture Catalyst, and so I wanted to just highlight for a moment that there's a lot going on this campus. There's a lot going on in agricultural technologies with Seed Central, the World Food Center, the Institute for Food and Health. There's a bunch of stuff going on in medicine, and sustainability in medicine is just now becoming a part of the discussion, which is exciting. And then the thing that actually I really wanted to call out as a really great resource for folks that may or may not be UC Davis affiliated is the Mike and Renee Child Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And in particular, there are two programs that they're offering this fall and winter into the spring. One is the Big Bang competition, and one is the Idea to Action workshops. And the idea is that they're sort of happening in tandem, but innovators can choose to participate in one or the other, or both. So with Big Bang, it's open to teams with at least one affiliation with a Northern California higher education institution. So I'm looking at you, Carlson Center. I'm looking at you, Sacramento State, and I'm really excited that the folks over at the Institute are building up a really great program there. And then also the Ideas into Action workshops are meant to help give Big Bang participants the types of entrepreneurial skills that can help them be that much more competitive in the competition. But there's also the opportunity to just go ahead and do those workshops a la carte, or anything like that. If you find topics on the website that you'd like to sign up for, that's totally fine as well. It's also a great networking opportunity because those sessions are going to be in person. And so with that, I'm going to close out. This is my contact information here. You can Google UC Davis Venture Catalyst or Google the Mike and Renee Child Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And I'm just really excited to find a way to connect you to resources that might be relevant for your needs. And so with that, I'll go ahead and go out of share mode and put us back into conversation mode here. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm also a serial entrepreneur myself. So if we end up wanting to just talk clean tech entrepreneurship, I'm also happy to do that. And I'll turn it over to Thomas to moderate.
Well, first, thank you very much, Janine, for that. A round of applause from everyone here. We got some questions coming in the chat. One of the ones that I want to quickly jump to is, where can you find recordings of the Knowledge Exchange videos?
Great question. So those are available on the Venture Catalyst YouTube channel, and I'll see if I can pull those up. Or if, Thomas, it looks like you're actually already actively Googling there. So maybe I'll let you see if you can pull it up.
All right. When I find it, I'll share it.
And then also, actually, just speaking of the knowledge exchanges, that SBDC Tech group in partnership with Venture Catalyst is going to be offering some SBIR STTR webinars coming up soon. And those are actually going to have a focus on groups like the Department of Defense, which many of you might know is actually a huge funder of clean tech innovations. So that should also be a really great session to plug into. And I can see if I can find that link for you, or I can send that on to Thomas.
Yeah, and you guys' YouTube link doesn't have any videos on it, so I won't share it right now. But so let's talk a little bit about, I guess there's been some companies that have come out of the Venture Catalyst out of UC Davis, one of them being Repurpose Energy, which has won Cal Seed grants and is doing a lot of cool stuff with recycling batteries. So what are some things that you see that companies are doing, I guess, right when it comes to engaging with Venture Catalyst?
Getting engaged early is definitely the right way to go. I would say one of the ways that, and I think this actually goes for a lot of university-based innovations, whether that's coming out of an undergraduate, graduate, or faculty member innovation, is being really mindful of where your intellectual property stands and who owns it and how to protect it. And all of that. And I think that that's one of the areas where Repurpose was really thoughtful. And then also, by engaging across the ecosystem. So they not only engaged with folks at Venture Catalyst, and in this case, they engaged with my now supervisor, Ryan Sharp, primarily, but they also took advantage of the competitions on campus. They took advantage of the mentorship and coaching courses available through the institution. And so I think the fact that they weren't afraid to break out of just their department or any one resource, and they really took advantage of a lot of resources, was something they did really well. And the other thing that I think is actually interesting too is in my interactions with them or things like that, we actually came across them at the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, and we're curious to have them participate potentially in our programming there. And they were really discerning about what programs they chose and why strategically for their purposes. And so I think the fact that they, took advantage of Cal Seed, they took advantage of CleanStart, all these different sort of programs, I think is really important.
So engage with everyone, but choose the ones that fit you. I think that's kind of what I'd summarize out of that. Would that be kind of correct, I guess? Yeah.
So it's like on one hand, you want to cast your net widely, and on the other hand, don't feel like you actually have to go deep and engage with everybody because, your time and resources are precious.
Yeah. And I also want to kind of ask you, so you've been at worked at some of the world leading clean tech hubs of Lacey and Massachusetts over at VentureWell. What do you think, that I guess our region is doing well, and what are some areas that you're like, hey, you could learn from looking at, Boston, VentureWell, or Lacey?
Good question, especially because I'm still so new to the area and I'm still getting to know everybody really well. I think that one of the things that I'm seeing people do really well here that, isn't that different from where Boston was 5 or 7 years ago, really, is everyone gets on calls like these. Everyone, started mapping, the fact that Laura and her colleagues have, mapped the ecosystem so that we're actually aware of where the opportunities and the gaps are, I think is a really important step towards having that edge. And then I think to the point of CleanStart, one of the things that the Boston ecosystem does really well is those interactions with higher ed institutions, which then connect to government agencies, which then connect to accelerators and incubators, which then connect to federal agencies and corporates. And then there becomes this really elegant pipeline from deep tech innovation that requires a lot of R&D all the way out to those commercialization pathways. And so I think that there's some really interesting stuff going on here in Northern California and in the Sacramento area where, we kind of have to be our own piece of the ecosystem. And I personally think that the intersection of ag tech and clean tech for this region is really compelling as well. So yeah, I could probably go on and on about it, but I'll let you probe deeper where you think it's interesting.
I'm going to see if Gary has anything that he wants to kind of add to that or question around it.
Well, thanks, and good to see you again, Janine. And we've tread some of the same territory of Massachusetts and Davis, so that's interesting. There's probably a lot of work going on in the School of Engineering at UC Davis there. I don't know that we connect with all of that very well. There's a lot of med and ag innovations that come through Big Bang. Are there things that we need to make sure that we're encouraging, take some additional steps towards commercialization, entrepreneurship out of the engineering school? Have you looked at that?
Yeah, so basically my role has been sort of patchy in the past couple of years. And so it's just one of those things where I think priming the pipeline is definitely something I'm really excited about doing moving forward now that I can be a really consistent point of contact for folks in the engineering school, for example, and I'm definitely already starting to build those relationships. But yeah, it's interesting too, because in the case of engineering or in the case of clean tech for that matter, it's not like medical technologies where you can really go to the School of Medicine and everybody's all in one place. And so with engineering, you've got the material science people who are doing really interesting stuff in clean tech. You've got the mechanical and electrical engineering people. So yeah, I think there's going to be some really rich territory to cover coming up as far as where those interesting innovations are coming out and ways that this ecosystem can support them as they spin out.
Yeah, we've had a couple good runs. We mentioned Repurpose Energy, and I'm trying to think of the name of the company. They came out of computer science and was based in Folsom for a while, but there are some really creative ideas that have made it to early commercial reality. So anything we can do, Janine, to help stimulate that and get more clean tech people involved, either by helping out at the front end of the Big Bang or anything else, just let us know. But I think there's a lot more going on at Davis that we could probably help with and connect to the broader community here in the Sacramento region. So just put that on your list of things to do, and we'd be happy to help out, get together with you whenever. Obviously, I've got a locational advantage since we're both here in Davis.
Great, thank you. And I just got a note that my audio is having problems. Can you hear me any better now?
We've been able to hear you, but the levels have been a little bit difficult
Tashi.
that time. Yeah.
Okay, I apologize. I don't know what's going on with my mic.
Yes, some of that is Zoom. We've been having a lot of trouble with bandwidth, et cetera. So anyway, okay, thanks. Laura, did you have other questions? You put several on the board up there. Did they all get answered? Oh, you're on mute.
They're probably more interesting to me than anyone else. But I was curious, Janine, who is running SBDC Tech at UC Davis Venture Catalyst? Did they get a director? Have they hired a director for that, or manager, or whatever the position is?
Yeah, so Ryan's overseeing it. Ryan Sharp is overseeing it, and then there's a manager that works with him named Adelanti. And so if you're interested in getting in touch with Adelanti or Ryan, I'm happy to make that connection.
Okay, I'm connected with Ryan, so but Adelante, is that a first name or?
Yeah, here, I'll type it in.
Okay. And then I was also curious, and you may not know the answer to this question, but is that a new name for the workshops? Like the Big Bang used to include this workshop series as well. And then the Ideas into Action, is that a rebranding of what used to be the workshops under the Big Bang?
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
It was just before people thought that they had to do both and they had to do everything. And so just making it a little bit more a la carte is just, part of that rebrand. But yeah, similar content to past years, things like that.
Okay, and then my final question related to SBDC Tech is, does biotech include medtech?
Yes.
That's all my questions.
Okay. Well, I noticed we've got Jeff Bush here. Janine, you don't know Jeff probably, but he's one of your engineering school graduates. Has worked with some big utilities down south, and I think it was Calpine also. So anyway, Jeff, do you have any questions? I know that Jeff is still connected to the School of Engineering, and I'm sure would be glad to help.
First of all, Janine, good morning. Nice to meet you virtually. And Gary, good morning again. And I think Janine answered the question, which Gary, you actually asked. It was one I was going to ask, which is, what can we do to connect with the College of Engineering? So that's something I'm trying to work through due to some other things that I'm working on. But that was my main question. I know, Janine, you're still, a bit new and still learning your way about the campus, but it's probably a follow-up discussion we could have in a month or two once you get settled in.
Yeah, I would love that. Definitely, please reach out to me and let's talk.
Yeah, I think her contact information is in the chat. So please, anybody who's on the line who wants to follow up with Janine, you've got a way to do that. Is there anybody else out there that would like to contribute to the discussion or ask a question? And remember, you're probably on mute.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna throw, can you see? Okay, so there's a question that just came in. So to Brian, who I think actually just messaged me around contract studies and how those might work. Brian, please go ahead and email me directly and I'll try to connect you to the right people. But yeah, I guess actually I'd love to close out with one final question to the group, which is also, you've asked a wonderful question, which is how can you help us at UC Davis in helping to build a stronger clean tech ecosystem? And I guess based on what you've heard today, what are some of the things that we could be doing better to also be a better part of the support system and the initiatives that each of you are working on that brought you to this conversation today?
One thing I would suggest is going back to the School of Engineering is, I don't know whether you need to do senior projects as a part of graduation requirements at UC Davis or not. That's commonly done. But, just advertise when those sorts of events happen so people can get more of an idea of what people are working on. And as you know, connections and networking so important in trying to gather the resources you need to commercialize an innovation. And we really obviously want to see that happen. So if there are any demo days or senior project discussion days, please make sure that you advertise that broadly so more of the community can come and see what's going on at UCD.
Great.
Yeah, this is Jeff Bush again. Just a quick question. Were there any lessons learned from your prior experience with respect to the major universities in the Los Angeles area and their relationship with Lacey?
I think the biggest lesson learned for me was that the role of campus incubators and the role of having some sort of intermediary between the fundamental technology work and being ready to do a program like Lacey's was really key. And so we really found that, folks that had come through UC Irvine or UC Riverside and had taken advantage of the resources on their campus, it was really obvious that they were much more competitive to then join our programming than those that had sort of a straight technology that might have been really compelling, but they just hadn't gotten a chance to lay the groundwork yet. And wonderful question from Susan. Thank you, Susan, for raising that question. How do we reach out to underserved communities so that they're aware of resources and/or can make use of the resources? So on our own campus, that looks a lot like reaching out to student groups such as the Society for Women Engineers, the Society for Black Engineers, and so on, and really making sure that people from minority groups or people from traditionally underserved groups realize that there are resources and the door is open. And then I think and thanks Laura for mentioning Plasma. Plasma is a really great program for undergraduate entrepreneurship initiatives at UC Davis, and they've done a really amazing job at really creating a climate of diversity and inclusion. I'll be honest, actually, that I don't know how we've been promoting the SPDC Tech, for example, or some of our other initiatives to reach a broader audience. And so I really actually welcome any thoughts or connections or networks that you may have where we should be continuing to spread the word within the broader ecosystem.
All right, well, thank you very much. We got some great great discussion there, great presentation. I want to again thank Janine Elliott, Assistant Director at UC Davis's Venture Catalyst, for joining us. Big round of applause for her. I'm also going to share some resources in the chat here. Again, some upcoming events, also some resources from our partners. I want to thank our partners for support, SMUD, Sac State, PIM, Blue Tech Valley, Moss Adams, and Weintraub Tobin again, along with those of you that have donated to us. I also would like to highlight connecting with us through social media. We're active on Twitter, LinkedIn, and also if you see this, there's one right here. That's Empower Innovation Network. That's for clean tech social media, I guess, for if you're a clean tech company. I want to highlight our upcoming meetup, Alternative Fuels, on the 28th. The global forum for that Clean Tech Open is putting on the 20th through the 22nd. I also put in there a link to Big Bang, which is coming up. This is an excellent opportunity. Repurpose Energy. That's, where they kind of got their start, or where they got a lot of recognition. Additionally, if you think of big companies like Sierra Energy, Origin Materials, that just was a $1 billion SPAC. These are UC Davis innovations that have been kind of commercialized or grown out of the program. I don't know all the exact details, but I'm sure Venture Catalyst played a strong role in it. Additional thanks to our overall partners, Hacker Lab, where I'm at, Momentum, Reverent, and GT Law, and our community of partners. So thank you all for attending. I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream and everything right now and